Welcome back to Kingston Now, and with us is the Ulster County DA, Holley Carnright. Another one of John Sennett's assertions is the issue of protocols regarding the issuance of money for drug operations for the police and for the district attorney's office. And he laid out a pretty strong case early in the show about things that he thought that your office hadn't done properly. Can you address those? I know you've heard them before.
Well, I don't want to talk too much about specific protocols in the office. I can only say that the gentleman that handles that for me has over 30 years experience in the criminal justice system, including 25 years in the FBI, where he handled just this type of thing. I've been around a little bit too. I've had about 30 years, and between the two of us we have a very specific protocol which has been in place in the office, and it was in place long before we dispersed any money that has been discussed. The protocols follow the FBI and DCJS protocols. The allegation apparently was that these protocols were not reviewed with the comptroller. That's just a patently false statement. Elliot and his assistant Laura Walls sat in Bill's office with me. We opened up the books. We showed him what we had. Any questions, any concerns, any problems, whatever you need, let us know. Come back and audit the numbers if you want. We actually recommended under the federal statutes or protocols, they audit money like this on a 30-day basis. I don't know where this whole thing is coming from. It's simply a inaccurate statement on his part.
We have never met before today in person, but we've met via email because shortly after you got elected, I'm the afternoon host and program director for Radio Woodstock 100.1. You sent us an email about a song that you heard on the radio that was written and recorded 40 years ago, but in today's context seemed to be misogynistic and promoted violence against women in particular. And that goes to an issue that's very important to you. Can you talk about your domestic violence stuff?
Yeah. I hope you didn't take offense by that.
You know, you were right,
I didn't
actually.
mean any offense.
You were right, and we didn't need to be playing that song.
The timing of it was that we had a terrible case where a man killed his wife and then himself, and the worst case scenario for domestic violence. And the woman happened to be a woman who had worked in the school district, and I was concerned that the song, which may have been heard by a number of her students, was poignant enough that they may have reacted to it, and that's all. I didn't mean to censure.
It's okay. Everyone's a program director.
Yeah, there you go. Everyone's a program director. But domestic violence is one of the major platforms that I have run on. It's an area in Ulster County that needs our attention. A couple of broad stroke statistics. 2 years ago, domestic violence made up 3.5% of our adult arrests. Last year, it was 9%. Domestic violence instances have increased over 100% in the past 6 years. And it's something that there's just a call to take care of. Many of the most dramatic cases, the saddest cases that I've worked on personally are domestic violence cases. In fact, we're doing a training next week on domestic violence, and my assistant and I are putting together an introductory PowerPoint presentation for the officers that are going to come in. And as I sat and looked at the photographs and the 911 and listening to the 911 calls, I've been reminded, graphically reminded, of how serious domestic violence is here in Ulster County. So we've taken a very aggressive approach on it. We've gotten a little help from the legislature recently. We got a new statute called the obstruction of breathing statute. It's going to enable us to do a better job at protecting victims.
And that's just to illustrate that. That's because oftentimes in instances of domestic violence, one partner will grab the other by the throat, which prior to this statute wasn't really, you had a hard time prosecuting that.
Yeah, it's about 65% of women who are victims of domestic violence are choked. Before the statute was passed, they looked at domestic violence really too much focus on physical injury, and domestic violence is much broader than physical injury. Domestic violence really is about intimidation, it's about fear, it's about control, and the stories that I could tell you we don't have time to go into and maybe your audience wouldn't appreciate. But this statute recognizes that domestic violence is much broader than leaving a mark or causing a physical injury, and it gave us the ability now to prosecute people on very serious cases without having to show a lasting injury. And I have never been choked, but I can only imagine the fear and the intimidation if a person chokes you to a point where you lose consciousness. And that statute addresses that. And we've actually already had a number of prosecutions based on that. We'll have our first felony prosecution based on that new statute coming up in about 2 weeks.
Holley Carnright, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure.
The general election is Tuesday, November 8th, and as the primaries for mayor in Kingston showed, every vote counts. We'd like to thank both John Sennett and Holley Carnright for being on the show today. For more information on either candidate, you can go to sennettforda.com or carnrightforda.com, and both men have Facebook pages too. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. See you next time.